Et maintenant, je vais appeler Yves Desbazeil. Alors, Yves, il est le directeur général de Foratom. Donc, ce sont les industries du secteur nucléaire. Je suis très heureuse qu'il ait accepté de présider cette table ronde parce que je suis contente que ce soit les industriels ou les entreprises qui interpellent les États sur ce qu'elles attendent pour pouvoir se développer sur chaque marché national et sur le marché européen. Et donc, on va aborder cet après-midi l'enjeu des coopérations entre les États pour mener cette bataille ensemble, si c'est possible, et pourquoi pas aller vers pacte de solidarité énergétique, j'en sais rien, électrique en tout cas, et puis des coopérations renforcées. Yves, c'est à toi.
Merci Claude. I will speak in English so that my panelists can also understand me well. And I'm going to just a quick introduction of the topic, and I'm aware that we are quite late, so I'm going to try also to reduce my time in speaking. The question is also about how if there are some possibilities to have at national level within the member states a conducive supporting scheme for supply chain and for the nuclear industry at large. And the question also is will be around the role of the Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package. Does it bring anything to the nuclear industry, positively or negatively? And should more be done on supporting nuclear value chain and nuclear industry at EU level? How member states can work together in respect of promoting nuclear, at least the member states who have like-minded views on nuclear. So I'm going to first quickly make a quick presentation of, give a few perspectives, and I think many of them have already been discussed this morning. So I will still, it'll be easier for me. Can you? Yeah. Okay. Can you move on, please? The question of current energy crisis, I think it has already been discussed a lot, so I'm going to go quick on that. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, the issue of CO2 and gas and other and the wholesale electricity price over the last months. So it's just incredible to see how high numbers have gone. And we still do not see exactly how we are going to spend the coming winter, particularly on gas prices. So moving on, please. Here we see a little bit longer perspective on how it means in terms of energy independence for Europe. And I must say, if you look at numbers, the perspective is not very nice. We see an increased dependence, particularly on gas, over the last years. And if we see exactly what's happening also with more and more intermittent sources in the system, this growth of gas consumption will probably increase again. So we have already a problem of security of supply that needs to be addressed. The question is also, and this is particular also due to the situation we face since many weeks, if not months, on low wind availability because of high pressure in Northern Europe. And this is some situation which have been observed for a long time. It has some consequences also on availability of wind power, and also dry season that affects hydro power availability as well. So all of that, I would say, is sort of adding up to the crisis, and we may end up with a perfect storm on gas this winter. So so what are the potential solutions? And I think it will be it's something which have been discussed already, and we not spend too much time on that. I will only insist on this graph chart, bar charts on the right-hand side that shows the different impacts on increase in according to different sources. And we see that nuclear has, even if you have a significant increase in the fuel in the uranium price, it has a low impact on the final cost of generation. And what has to be known is clear that for atom perspective, it's important to keep the nuclear option fully available. And I think on that, I would only paraphrase Mr. Gary Bass, who clearly said that nuclear was not transitional. It was there to stay. And I think something we indeed believe is true at for atom level. So moving on, please. Just quickly, here we see that nuclear is not only a power, and I think this is also very important to understand that we're talking about a sector that has a significant impact across Europe. And for people who think that we can just get rid of nuclear and forget about it, sorry to say that it's not an option. There are nuclear and isotope and everything related to it are all over the place, and there is no reason that we should envisage that it will disappear at some point of time. A quick, I will not spend some time on that because we don't have time, but it's clear that nuclear industry is also, I would say, a full ecosystem with suppliers, regulators, operators, researchers, and this, I would say, has a significant impact on the industry in general in Europe. So moving on. So here we are just saying here that we have more than 1 million jobs with a high level of skills. 47% of the workforce is highly skilled, which is much more than in many other sectors, and a GDP impact of 500 billion euros across the industry. Moving on. Those are comparison of jobs and growth impact between different sources of energy. We see that each time nuclear is sort of have more impact per terawatt hour than other such as wind and hydro. Moving on. It's also important to say that in the long term we see some role for nuclear in decarbonizing other sectors which are less easy to decarbonize than power. And there would be probably a role on that for small modular reactors, and maybe also microreactors, advanced reactors in the longer term. And we can do a lot of things with that. Not going to spend too much time, but it's something which have been discussed already. We need also to build new nuclear, and we need massive new nuclear. If we look at numbers, if we want to keep the existing share of nuclear power across in Europe, there will be more than 100 gigawatts of new installed capacity to be commissioned by 2050. It's a huge, significant number that deserve to be considered by decision makers, we need to have the appropriate framework for that. And also, risk of early retirement is also of significance for 2030 and beyond. And we need to also to keep as much as possible the current fleet running. Moving on. And I will stop here because I think we would like to also now to give the floor to my panelists. So there was a first one which was Bernard Acquayer, but I would like to go first, sorry for the change, to Lisa, because she has to leave in 15 minutes. That's what she's told me. So Lisa Ekinemo, who is the Deputy Director General at Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment in Finland, and she's responsible for nuclear energy and fuels. So Lisa, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you, Eve. And very good to meet you all through the video. I don't know if you have my presentation available for showing, because through this system it's a bit difficult.
It's available.
Yes. Okay, possible you can show it, and but I can start. So about this topic and the questions we got before, I would first give you a few of the answers or a bit of the thinking from Finland, and then I would go to the Finnish background a bit, how the situation of nuclear energy looks currently in Finland. But the first question you put was about the establishment of an industrial cluster, nuclear sector cluster or alliance, and how would we feel it in Finland? And my view is, of course, a ministry perspective now. So in Finland, we don't have any big nuclear industry except power companies producing nuclear energy. But of course, we have services and component industries that are very much involved in this business. And in Finland, we have organized a Finnish cluster, we call it Finnuclear. And I think that this type of a national cluster or network could be linked to European level clustering. So my first answer is that yes, clustering might be an efficient tool. But especially I would point out a second point, and I also I want to be in line if you go to the next page with the message of Massimo Carica about this nuclear waste management. That in Finland we are approaching the operation of our facility, underground facility, and this is sort of a flagship in Finland for the nuclear industry. And in this area of waste management, we are of course willing to be the leading partner as well for the clustering. And we are very open to any new ideas for building up clusters. My third point is on the previous slide. My third point, I have only 3 points here, is of course SMR industries and exploiting the SMR technology. I think this is very interesting and topical, and my being in a hurry today is related to this question because we have a discussion on the licensing of SMRs in Finland after this topic. So I think it's time to find the partners now and find the partners for different stakeholder groups, maybe a bit different topics. And a common target today what we feel very important is this acceptance criteria for licensing. So my second slide is a bit of the question of what more member states to do to obtain greater recognition for nuclear industry at EU level, and this Green Deal and Fit for 55, how they would help. And very short, we should recognize the role of nuclear in the zero emission production. This is sure, and I will later show you graphs And in Finland, about 1/3 of the electricity is produced by nuclear power plants. So when the consumption is increasing, we also need to find good sources. Maybe we can go further to the slide showing where we are now today in Finland. It's a northern country and we have 4 operating nuclear power units, 2 on the south coast. It's the Loviisa site, quite old ones, but still they are now thinking about continuing the use over 20 years from this decade. And then we have on the west coast Olkiluoto site, and there we have 2 operating units, 1 and 2, they will operate up to 2038, and then 1 new EPR which should be started this winter and operate, of course, then over 60 years or more. And this Posiva site is important. Then we have a new project, Fennovoima Hanhikivi, and that is in a construction license process. So we can go further, because this is about the next slide is about the greenhouse emissions anticipated in Finland, and the emissions is the y-axis, and our scenarios are on the x-axis. I don't go into details, but the lowest bar is for the energy production, and our target is to be zero emission 2035, and that's quite close in these calculations. So we are pretty close to the target if we succeed with our actions. These are quite new figures, and we are now working with the strategy for the climate and energy issues. So the next slide is more on the electricity total acquisition in Finland. And the lowest part of the bar, which is like the French blue, blue color, represents our nuclear production. And to meet this total acquisition rate, we really need in all of our scenarios our all capacity of nuclear power plants, plus the new Olkiluoto 3 and Fennovoima 1. So all of these units are here in our scenarios, independent of the scenario target, and it's quite a strong message that we really need these units. So this will be published probably in November more openly, but just to show you that this is quite thorough work behind our thinking and why we need nuclear power in Finland. The next slide is probably quite we are at the end. So what are our actions? We need to renew our Nuclear Energy Act. We need to be compatible with the EU regulations as well. And the other topic, the action is to assess the SMRs. If we need more electricity, or if we need more heat, which is a fact today. This was only electrical acquisition I presented. I didn't speak about heat, and this is a big issue in Finland as well. We need the SMR technology. So this is ongoing, and we want to put more effort in the coming years for this topic. So this was in short my story, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lisa. One quick question on your presentation, and it's a question about how you would see the future of SMRs in Finland, and maybe also elsewhere. Will it be for you a new technology that may replace large reactors in the future, or do you see the two technologies being there for long term and with different applications? So how you see these SMRs developing? Yeah, but my question was about SMRs and what future you see for SMRs versus large reactors in the long term. Different applications, or the two will be available, or what?
The SMR technologies. I guess your question, so I will continue with my answer. And as I told, we are now studying the SMRs to replace the municipal heating, and this is because of banning the fossil fuels. And this work is ongoing. And we are also looking at legislation and licensing of SMRs, and this is a governmental program we are undergoing now, and we will finish next year. In this model of electrical electricity acquisition, I presented only electricity, not the heat. So SMRs are not included, and after the 2035, the figures are quite uncertain in this modeling, and we think that about 2030 we have to look better the status of the SMRs and update the figures. So we keep the space for SMRs, and most probably the driver for starting the use of SMRs outside of the municipal heating would be the needs of industry. That if there will become more needs, we need to look at the SMRs. So I hope I answered to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. No, it was very clear. Maintenant, je voudrais donner la parole à Monsieur Bernard Accoyer. Bernard Accoyer, qui est ancien président de l'Assemblée nationale en France et qui préside l'association Patrimoine nucléaire et climat. Voilà, Monsieur Accoyer, la parole est à vous. Vous pouvez parler maintenant, je crois. Vous pouvez maintenant parler. Voilà, c'est bon, on vous voit là, ça y est. Vous entendez? Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
J'ai une très mauvaise connexion, je n'ai rien entendu jusqu'à présent. Comment vous vous adressez?
Oui, tout à fait, oui. Donc je vous ai voilà, donc si vous m'entendez là, donc la parole est à vous. Hein, je vous ai rapidement introduit, donc.
J'espère que je ne vais pas être coupé parce que ça n'arrête pas.
D'accord.
Je voulais d'abord vous féliciter tous pour la qualité de ces interventions. Merci Claude. Et je vais être rapide compte tenu de la faiblesse de ma connexion. Je crois que le moment est extrêmement grave et que ce qui se passe actuellement doit nous conduire à réfléchir à la création même de l'Europe qui s'est construite autour du problème de l'énergie. Et il ne faudrait pas que 70 ans après les premiers traités, après les premiers pas, le CETA et puis l'Euratom, ce soit sur les questions énergétiques que l'Europe trébuche, voit son destin basculer. Car la crise dans laquelle nous sommes est une crise qui est avant tout une crise climatique et une crise énergétique. Les deux étant étroitement liés, et ces deux crises constituent pour l'Europe un défi et une préoccupation. Je commencerai par la préoccupation. Nous avons le problème de disposer d'une électricité en quantité sécurisée. Nous avons des problèmes quant au prix de cette électricité, la stabilité des prix, et le défi est que les règles du marché font que la situation devient chaque jour moins prévisible, moins contrôlable. Et ce contexte arrive au moment où nous devons décarboner notre énergie. Il y a donc trois problèmes qui se posent, un sur la sécurité d'approvisionnement, deux sur les prix, trois sur la décarbonation. Ce défi, il arrive au pire moment, c'est-à-dire au moment où le contexte géopolitique ouvrons les yeux et sortons un petit peu de nos bureaux. Le contexte géopolitique est celui d'une approche vers l'épuisement des ressources. Car dans la crise sur le prix du gaz, je veux bien entendre qu'après l'hiver ira mieux, il y a indiscutablement la baisse des ressources disponibles qui précède bien sûr l'épuisement de ces ressources. C'est valable pour le gaz, c'est valable aussi pour les autres fossiles, mais c'est valable aussi pour les métaux, et on sait que la transition énergétique, dans les technologies en particulier renouvelables, a de très gros appétits en matière première, en particulier en matière de métaux. Les grandes puissances sont déjà à la manœuvre. Il s'agit des USA, de la Chine, de la Russie. Elles préparent leur avenir et elles investissent d'ailleurs très largement dans le nucléaire, et elles essayent d'assurer aussi leur avenir énergétique, parce que l'avenir dépend évidemment en grande partie de l'énergie. L'Europe ne peut pas rester davantage aveugle avec ces discussions micro-collines sur tel et tel point de telle ou telle technologie, alors que les techniques sont sûres, que les années d'expérience réacteurs se chiffrent par milliers, et que les procédés de stockage des déchets les plus actifs, les plus dangereux, sont eux aussi bien codifiés et reconnus par la communauté internationale. D'ailleurs, le JRC l'a lui-même attesté, il y a une surattestation qui a été obtenue sur ce point. Donc, nous avons un problème qui est un défi sur l'approvisionnement, sur le contexte géopolitique. Deuxième défi sur la sécurité d'approvisionnement, on voit des alertes sur des manques d'électricité, des blackouts, ceux de Tipeee. Il y en a eu un en janvier au niveau européen. Au mois d'août, c'était pas mal, mais elle était extrêmement chaude. Cette situation, évidemment, est extrêmement périlleuse, car un effondrement du système électrique européen serait une catastrophe, car chacun sait qu'il faut passer une semaine pour rétablir le courant lorsqu'il y avait un tel malheur. Donc, le problème est qu'à force de fermer les puissances pilotables, que ce soit des puissances installées fossiles, et c'est nécessaire pour les questions d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre, mais aussi des puissances nucléaires pour des raisons qui sont des raisons politiques, qui ne sont pas étayées par des démonstrations scientifiques rigoureuses. Le JRC l'a prouvé, nous mettons chaque jour en plus grand danger. La baisse des puissances pilotables installées entre 2005 et 2021 aura été de plus de 20%. C'est évidemment extrêmement périlleux, et le système de subvention aux énergies renouvelables a diminué les investissements dans les énergies pilotables. C'est une des grandes causes, la cause de la situation actuelle. Sur les règles du marché européen l'ont totalement déréglé. On ne peut pas considérer, on ne peut pas se satisfaire d'un marché qui, de grandeur, va produire des prix très élevés, très coûteux, et puis des prix négatifs très bas. Cette instabilité est ingérable, facilite d'ailleurs des spéculations qui ne sont guère encouragées, et elle menace les investissements qui sont des investissements durables, destinés à fournir une électricité qui soit accessible et fiable aux citoyens des États membres. Enfin, sur la décarbonation. Mais sur la décarbonation, c'est le troisième échec de l'Europe. Il y a un échec sur la sécurité d'approvisionnement, un échec sur les prix, et puis il y a un échec sur la décarbonation. Nous n'atteindrons pas, c'est vraiment extrêmement hypocrite de faire croire que nous atteindrons les moins 55% d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre par rapport à 1990 en 2035 et la neutralité carbone en 2050. Il n'y a qu'à regarder la situation en Allemagne, avec un investissement dans les énergies renouvelables qui doit à ce jour dépasser les 500 milliards d'euros et une baisse insuffisante des émissions pour parvenir à l'objectif au moment où RWE demande la construction à rapide de nombreuses centrales à gaz. Donc, là aussi, c'est une impasse. En France également. En France, les investissements renouvelables sont au-delà de 160 milliards d'euros à cette date. Et évidemment, nous n'avons eu aucun résultat sur nos émissions de gaz à effet de serre, pour la bonne raison que l'électricité française est décarbonée à 90% en raison du mix électrique et de nos 70% de nucléaire, et qui, entre parenthèses, font que la France a le meilleur résultat en matière d'émissions de gaz à effet de serre des pays du G7, de moins, et la même chose d'ailleurs au niveau des pays de l'Union européenne, avec la Suède, dont on connaît la richesse sur le plan hydroélectrique. J'ajoute que ce mix, on peut aussi réfléchir. Si tous les pays du monde, on peut faire cette extrapolation intéressante, avaient eu le même mix électrique que la France, le même mix énergétique, eh bien, l'objectif des 1,5 degrés de réchauffement en 2100 serait à portée de main, il serait déjà dans la perspective naturelle d'évolution. Tous ces points conduisent à ce que l'Europe ouvre les yeux sur les réalités, sur la rapidité, sur l'accélération de ce qui est en train de se passer avec les énergies fossiles, avec les ressources naturelles, mais aussi avec les technologies. Car la technologie circulaire qui permettra d'avoir de l'énergie en recyclant ses propres déchets, c'est la technologie nucléaire. Il n'y en a pas d'autre. La fusion, une hypothèse extrêmement lointaine, et de surcroît incertaine, elle ne peut pas être une hypothèse. Et le défi, il est immédiat. Le réchauffement va s'accélérer et il arrivera à un moment où le prix du carbone, il manque tout simplement de ressources fossiles. On consomme de plus en plus, c'est malheureux, mais c'est ainsi, deviendra un obstacle insurmontable avec les conséquences économiques, les conséquences sociales, les conséquences politiques redoutables auxquelles l'Europe aura du mal à résister. C'est pourquoi il apparaît comme extrêmement choquant un certain nombre de tergiversations sur la taxonomie et que le bilan de certains pays qui inondent le ciel européen non seulement de CO2 mais également de particules, mérite d'être mis en face de certains états d'âme sur lesquels on devrait avoir la certitude que les puissances étrangères à l'Union européenne ne font pas pression. Il est temps que l'Union européenne, la Commission, les États membres se ressaisissent, qu'ils se mettent autour d'une table et qu'ils voient comment on peut coopérer pour réellement décarboner concrètement, non pas dans des suppositions, avec des hypothèses de développement d'énergie renouvelable qui, jusqu'à présent en Europe, ont montré qu'elles étaient largement insuffisantes pour aboutir. Réviser, bien entendu, les règles du marché de l'électricité. L'électricité ne peut pas être considérée comme la téléphonie, dont la dérégulation a été une réussite. Dont l'électricité, c'est un bien de nécessité immédiate. C'est un service immédiat. C'est une commodité, un droit dont les citoyens ont besoin. Et avec la pénurie, ce sont les prix qui, évidemment, vont opérer une sélection sociale insupportable. L'Europe ne peut pas faire ça à ses citoyens. Il convient qu'elle se ressaisisse et qu'elle avance sur ce dossier.
Vous nous entendez? On vous a perdu?
Oui.
Là. À la fin. Et vous m'entendez là? Voilà, non, merci donc pour votre intervention. Moi, j'avais juste une petite question, mais qui est en fait en lien avec ce que vous étiez en train de dire. Au vu de cette situation en Europe, quel est votre avis sur la façon dont on peut quand même faire avancer les choses? Est-ce que la France doit être à l'initiative pour travailler avec des pays qui sont favorables au nucléaire, quitte à quitte à déroger à certaines règles, ou quel est votre avis sur les mesures politiques possibles pour essayer d'enrayer la situation que vous avez parfaitement décrite?
Oui, je crois que c'est une priorité. vers le nucléaire pour relever le défi énergétique et climatique forment ensemble un travail, produisent un travail commun et recherchent des coopérations politiques pour concrétiser ce qui d'ailleurs existe maintenant dans les chiffres, c'est-à-dire une minorité de blocage, mais également aller plus loin sur la constitution de coopération technique, industrielle, et évidemment la recherche de financement dans cette filière dont, comme cela a été dit déjà à plusieurs reprises, les enjeux financiers sont lourds, les investissements sont lourds, et ils se font à long terme. Et j'insiste sur le fait que les États sont indispensables pour réguler la mise à disposition des citoyens de pays membres d'une électricité fiable et à un prix abordable. La régulation des prix ne peut être que le fait des États avec des investissements très importants qui, s'ils sont faits par une BD, doivent être garantis par l'État et je pense par l'Union européenne pour qu'il y ait une certaine facilité qui soit offerte en particulier aux familles les plus modestes, mais également à notre industrie qui, si on laisse aller les choses, ne pourra pas survivre à l'explosion des prix de l'électricité, car je ne suis pas d'accord avec l'intervention de Simon qui dit, vous allez voir, au printemps, le soleil va venir et le prix du gaz, non, les matières premières sont durablement parties pour augmenter, et en particulier les énergies fossiles. C'est paradoxal au moment où il faudrait en réduire l'utilisation, mais c'est ainsi. D'ailleurs, les États qui remplacent le nucléaire par du gaz contribuent à cette situation d'augmenter la demande et par conséquent de pousser à la hausse le prix du gaz.
Merci beaucoup pour cette intervention. Je crois que c'est tout à fait éclairant. Et du coup, vous avez appelé à partager nos vues, enfin les vues de la France avec d'autres pays européens. Donc on va en continuer à en écouter. Et donc maintenant, je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Thomas Heller, qui est Deputy Minister, Nuclear Section at Ministry of Industry and Trade in the Czech Republic. So, Thomas, the floor is yours, and I think you have a presentation that is going to be made available. But yeah, you can, if you want to start, time it takes to have the presentation, feel free. We cannot, but can you speak so that you can be seen on the screen? And apparently we don't have your presentation.
Yes, I don't have a presentation. I just have a few remarks.
Ah yeah, okay, true.
Remember. Question whether you can see and hear me just confirm this, and so then I can start.
Can you confirm? Can you confirm?
Yeah, you can go on. Okay, thank you.
Correct. Excellent. So, here, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and many thanks for inviting the Republic to sit on the table and to present our positions within this conference. Sometimes the nuclear events are a bit about preaching to the converted, but I'm glad that this is officially successful organized and really present that the outreach is really broad. We have a commission here as stakeholders, so it's really a pleasure to be able to be at the table and to say a few things. Yeah, we are almost at the end, and almost everything has been said. So I will try to pick up a few points on which we have agreed on this quite broad topic. So first thing, let me start with the current situation and perhaps following the letter of Bruno Le Maire, President of Economics and Finance, to tackle the increasing electricity prices. It's clear we need a predictable carbon price to all costs independence and self-sufficiency, which is for the Czech Republic strategic target, perhaps compared to other countries, and it's a goal which is written down in the state energy policy. So, from our point of view, energy transition without nuclear energy is not feasible in our region without offshore wind energy and with limited potential for renewable energies, which are on the other hand partner for nuclear. So there are two important pillars of the Czech energy policy, and I think that's perhaps important to see that in our country we have high support for nuclear and renewable energy sources, and from the same groups that is pragmatic pressure. Furthermore, we're glad that the like-minded pro-nuclear group of member states is getting wider. Slovenia, Croatia, perhaps Netherlands is predicting the plans for nuclear. So it's a really good sign, and I really do like the practical direction approach of Finnish Greens, which do support nuclear energy as a tool for decarbonization. Important thing, we need to diversify our energy supply, but we need a gradual, responsible approach, which in the Czech Republic, in many countries, is connected with the coal phase out, and in mid-term perspective, the reduction on independence of gas. Everything that has been said by Massimo Very excellent. Nuclear is a long-term instrument, gas transitional energy source. That's the same view from the Czech Republic as well. One important thing we should discuss the role of low energy sources, low carbon energy sources, and the market design and the role of stability. I think the value of stability is not priced in the niche. We should somehow try this vicious circle and really to take into account the system cost and the importance of nuclear energy. So that's a long-term task. Perhaps important thing, what has been repeated, we need fair treatment for all low-carbon energy sources. And that's, I would say, not only to acknowledge the role of nuclear, but to really have the same conditions within all policies and programs of the European Union. That's fair, that's logic, and that's rational, and that can help us to reach the highest cost effectively. As for the platform for cooperation, of course, Euratom it's an ideal framework of experiences and best practices for operation, for long-term operation, and for new build and all activities connected with that. But I think we should be more ambitious. We should think about establishing a platform where public and private sector on a long-term basis can share their experiences on the EU level and expand our nuclear know-how. To be concrete yet, perhaps formulate on the regional level within the Visegrad countries, we have regular exchange of experiences, and that's really a good thing. And sometimes there are spillovers on the bilateral level. So it's really a good thing to have synergies and to share our experiences. And one thing on the EU level has been already mentioned, the EU as on the national level the case is. Perhaps, and of course, the regulators, especially already mentioned for example, in the SMRs field, there is for sure anybody that in the place where we see that the EU SMR platform would play a bigger role. Perhaps as for the Czech experience, you know, in our state energy policy, we have a corridor for targets for each energy sources. Nuclear now plays or has share of 37%, the largest source of electricity, and it should rise to 50% approximately. So we plan now to call a new project, the 5th unit in the site, in the state energy policy, we have a large program to 4 units, which should allow us to implement the coal phase out and to secure the generation. That's an important thing. We should think not only in annual ranges, annual approach, but we should also think in situations such as February, full month without no wind and no sun. So we really should energy security have the same priority in this triangle of energy and climate policy. Next to economics, which is one thing, and I think there is a role of nuclear as well due to dimensions and costs and other things. Perhaps third pillar from the Czech perspective, for the SMRs, we are analyzing the future. We are making feasibilities and applicabilities. We are analyzing our regulatory framework, identifying possible sites. It's a long-term approach. It's complementary to large units. That was the question of these. So first, we will see any contradiction. We have to wait and support the process, how it will evolve. But definitely, for our whole phase out, which contains about 8 to 10 gigawatts of lignite installed capacity, we would need in the future for large units now and perhaps for heat or other applications, small nuclear reactors, if they are technologically ready. As for our experience with building the nuclear industrial ecosystem, you know the Czech nuclear industry is capable. It has historical tradition. We have built 25 reactors and construct them in the Czechoslovakia and Eastern Europe. So historically, the family nuclear power plant has been built also 9% viable industry. So our industry is strong and with strong export potential. What we have done, we have set up Czech Power Industry Alliance, consortia of 15 major suppliers, which of course defend their interests, but they play as an amplifier, as a representative of the whole industry, and it works well. And this is perhaps an inspiration for other countries on the I think it's similar to Forato, but it's more on the industrial level. And we have prepared on the list of companies, but we have prepared a roadmap for capabilities for nuclear new build, describe potential as a guidance for all the projects. So that's practical, and I think it's not only for the Czech Republic, but for the export and the international cooperation as well. 2 points perhaps to conclude. One is the Czech EU presidency in the second half of the next year. We are following France, and of course nuclear energy will play an important role in the energy sector. France has concrete plans. We have 2 or 3 points. One thing is to highlight the role and potential the nuclear and the nuclear industry as a role. Secondly, we will have 2 years or 3 years with COVID and without an end, that would be a good starting and sign a flag for the next development of nuclear energy. It's probable. And third thing, we will have a satellite conference where will be also a nuclear part. Discussion for I think it's not for the Czech presidency, but for the next ones in the Commission. We would like to see in the near future also the update of the nuclear positive program, some overview, actual picture and guidance for the future. I think that should be our joint effort, and also the small modular reactors potential should be reflected. So let me conclude. Nuclear is important. We should not mix goals and instrument. That means technological neutrality, cost effectiveness, and the true level playing field for all low carbon energy sources, be it renewables, nuclear, or others in the future. Without it, the vicious circle of unstable power systems, spikes in energy prices, or even blackouts could happen, and that we should be responsible, prevent it, and to return to the topic, the nuclear energy industry should be treated as other strategic sectors, the aerospace, telecommunications, etc. It's really important. Thank you very much, and enjoy the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas, for this very comprehensive presentation. I think you covered all the topics I had in mind. So maybe before we go for questions, we could give the floor to Mr. Kubacki, who's counselor at the Minister of Climate in Poland. And I think Mr. Kubacki has prepared a presentation. So, Mr. Kubacki, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it is my second opportunity to present Poland as a part of the nuclear country embarking. So in this time I will be speaking about the supply chain in Poland, emerging supply chain for nuclear industry in Poland. And then I would like to take a look at the European perspective of cooperations and then perspective for the nuclear industry in Europe. So if I can ask for my presentation, because just I submitted my presentation to organizer.
Can you answer him?
Yeah. Okay, can you show the presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
So can we present that? If not, I will switch to my presentation.
Can you just tell him that it's
So my computer.
It's coming.
Okay, it's good. Again, you notice, please just first slide, please the next one. Please the next slide. As I said in my presentation, I will describe the way how we want to develop nuclear supply chain in our country, and then I would like to look from our perspective on the European Union environment, and then short remarks. Please the next slide. Before I start, I told it yesterday, but short reminder, Polish nuclear power program is 6 to 9 gigawatts of installed capacity based on large proven technology. Please the next slide. Please the next. And then we last year updated the program, and we said that Poland needs and would like to build 6 nuclear units till the year 2043, and then commission University 33. Then we will have a new business and operational model. State will be much more engaged in the program. And finally, what is important for this presentation, we underline the important role of the local content in supply chain development. This is the next one. year, Ministry of Climate conducted the gap analysis. In that gap analysis, we indicated 79 Polish companies which have been engaged in the nuclear power project all over the world in the last 10 years. They were engaged in the nuclear power plants, fuel recycling facilities, they were doing research reactors in Poland as well. But apart the 79 companies, we also identified 250 Polish companies which have sufficient capabilities, competencies for nuclear industry. So having that base, we put in our program that we want to have 40% of the first unit built in Poland made by Polish company, and finally, the last unit we would like to have 70% of the local content. Polish industry have various capabilities. We can produce and render services to business and to the balance of plants, to the turbine generator components. We are also almost ready in some parts to deliver components to the nuclear supply system. But we need, of course, some more time to prepare the Polish company. This is the next one. This map shows you where Polish company already were. We were in project in 3 continents. We were engaged in 44 nuclear power plants, fuel cycle facilities, and the Polish company has the cooperation and delivered products and services to most European Union countries which has established nuclear power. We also cooperate with neighboring countries like Ukraine, Belarus, Turkey, Russia. We have also quite established supply chain with the cooperation with the nuclear partners, companies like ABB, GE, Hitachi, Rosatom, even Schneider, Siemens, Westinghouse. So our partners are the companies which are well-known companies. This is the next one. But having the goal objective to increase the Polish nuclear industry capacity and having already established to some extent the supply chain, to look at what's going on in the current EU environment. And my remarks almost will share what has been said during this today conference. First, one of the main obstacles, as you can see, for the development of nuclear industry is the lack of the level playing field among zero and low emission technology. This is true at the global level, and while the contribution of nuclear power in fighting climate change is not recognized within the global climate negotiation. So this is one very important problem. Nuclear is not recognized as a climate-friendly energy source. Today, in Europe, it's very difficult to move forward with the nuclear plan. Financing of a nuclear projects remains a challenge due to the high demand of the capital and sensitivity to the conditions of acquiring these funds. The obstacles also is shared by other large infrastructural projects like offshore wind farms, but nuclear has no access to incentives enjoyed by renewables. While renewables technology benefiting from broad support mechanisms, the vast majority of EU policy and funding exclude nuclear power from the scope. It has been already said about the regional fund and so on. In terms, yes, please, what is needed in the EU regulatory industrial policy? We need a stable EU policy framework which will encourage investment in all low-carbon technology, including nuclear power. Secondly, nuclear power should be recognized as an industrial sector indispensable for net zero transition, and long-term strategy should be adopted in the European Union based on the Article 1 of the supporting nuclear investment. In 2016, we have the illustrative program called PING, which should show us how the nuclear power should be developed, how we should support the nuclear power, but unfortunately it was not a document which has a very significant role to play. More of the document of the strategy of nuclear was based on safety, security consideration and waste management, not a new build project. We need more support for R&D and innovation. It has been said that Europe is lacking in funding for research, both into the current and future nuclear technology. The spending for research and development is not sufficient. Second, harmonization and standardization for nuclear projects and technology is needed on the European and global market. This is a big issue. Without that issue, it will be very difficult to develop new technologies, to build, to start the active cooperation between companies, when we will be dealing with the different standards, different harmonization, different regulation. So from that point of view, closer regulatory cooperation is needed for Europe, and especially it is needed now for the energy technology like SMRs. This is the next slide. So concluding my remarks on the supply chain and nuclear industry, I would like to stress that nuclear power can contribute to the creation of new innovative industry, both in Poland and Europe, with a high degree of technological investment. In case of Poland, we would like to even 70% of the localization of the work for nuclear power program in Poland, but it could generate from 25 to 38,000 of highly qualified new jobs. That was said in the Forato presentation, but we have 1 million people. If we add the need for construction of new nuclear plants and how much they can contribute, really it is a big, large number of good long-term jobs. Government interested in nuclear power should work jointly and create pro-nuclear alliance. First, to balance anti-nuclear policy within the EU. Its first steps are already visible. We have in March letter of 7 leaders of the European countries supporting nuclear power sector and showing up the importance to include the nuclear power in the taxonomy. We have presented a letter of 10 countries, and there are more countries which are starting to invest in nuclear, like Netherlands and Slovenia, in new projects. So the number of countries are expanding. So this country should join, should create a very strong alliance and overcome the current barriers hindering the development of new nuclear projects, and actively engage in their development and final execution. Then we have discussed during the day many times about the taxonomy. The decision on the exclusion of nuclear power from taxonomy is very political rather than scientific. So it should be avoided exclusion at all costs. We should strive to depoliticize the decision on taxonomy by referring to GRC report and by following science-based approach. This is a very important topic, not to stigmatize nuclear power as a not sustainable source of generation, as it has been said, it will have great negative impact on the cooperation and development of the nuclear sector. Government and EU institutions also should look more aggressively toward the extension of applicability of nuclear power. Nuclear applicability beyond electricity generation in the fields like hydrogen productions, heat generation, and other applications. With this, it will greatly improve the position of industrial nuclear power in Europe, if we can use for this type of the production. And finally, nuclear power should be included in the global climate negotiations. That the ground is now very important currently because we are approaching quickly the as an indispensable source for climate generation, and we surely stress that without nuclear we never meet the net zero goals. So thank you very much for this attention, and we have to answer any questions if there will be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kubacki. One quick question with regard to the situation in Poland. You have a lot of coal plants, and my question was more on the social aspect. And will nuclear be able to take over the skills that we see on coal and transform them, adapt them to nuclear? What are your take on that?
The closure of coal power station is a very difficult process for Poland, because many regions in Poland are depending on coal mining and using the coal as an electricity production. In Poland currently this is about 70% of the mix in Poland is coal, and then base coal, and then we have about 100,000 jobs still engaged. So that we are considering various options. There's discussions, there are starting discussion about the location of the future nuclear power plant. So we are thinking, that first there will be a lignite power station, which has to be closed in the 30s, and the size of this nuclear power lignite stations, there is good infrastructure, there is available labor force. So we are looking at that site as a potential location for the nuclear power plants. It also concerns, the recent initiative of the Polish businesses, which are aware that they should close, they need clean electricity, and they now using mostly gas and coal, and they are looking carefully at the SMRs. And that's probably the SMRs will be somehow also in the future placed on the areas, on the sites where there were coal power stations. So we are fully aware of the process. We are know that it is long term, but it's necessary, and Poland is doing this, replacing base load capacity of coal by the base load stable generation by nuclear.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe we have time for one or two questions. We have not so much time, but could you show all the speakers on the screen? Can we see all the speakers? Because I suspect some have disconnected, but I would like to see who is still around. And if there are some questions from the floor or from the chat on Zoom. Saïd, on t'entend, vas-y.
Continuer à travailler avec les institutions européennes pour promouvoir la place nucléaire.
Tu peux parler plus près de ton micro, s'il te plaît, Saïd, on ne t'entend pas bien. Ouais, vas-y, parle vraiment, voilà.
Bon, vous disais qu'il n'y a pas de contradiction entre travailler avec les institutions européennes pour promouvoir la juste place nucléaire dans l'énergie européenne et travailler en parallèle pour l'alliance entre les pays nucléaires. C'est vraiment important de travailler en parallèle sur cette alliance entre les pays nucléaires, parce que sinon on n'arrivera pas à grand chose si on met tout dans cette bataille avec les institutions européennes. Ça va être très très compliqué parce qu'on le sait très bien, on est d'accord que vous disiez, ça prend déjà un temps pour arriver à des conclusions, mais quand il y a des différences, le temps devient vraiment un cauchemar pour arriver à des conclusions, et quand on arrive en général à des conclusions, quand on ne s'entend pas, c'est vraiment avancer sur les idées que les collègues polonais et tchèques ont bien sur leur présentation, travailler sur le supply chain ensemble pour avoir une autonomie stratégique au niveau de la construction nucléaire, travailler ensemble sur l'harmonisation de ressentis avec les régulateurs, travailler sur les déchets, travailler sur la recherche aussi ensemble, avoir une roadmap sur l'innovation, partager le budget et les problèmes. C'est très important de travailler sur cette alliance. Ça fait longtemps qu'on en parle, mais on n'a rien fait encore à part, évidemment, etc. Donc ma question à mon collègue polonais et à mon collègue tchèque, est-ce qu'ils sont prêts à prendre des initiatives concrètes dans ce sens, d'appeler à des réunions entre les pays nucléaires et commencer à réfléchir comment officialiser, pour l'instant c'est des réunions informelles, pour officialiser cette alliance.
Okay, so thank you, Said. Two questions to Mr. Ehler and Mr. Kubaki on the potential cooperation among countries. I would say without necessarily going through the Commission and its services. And I think it also goes into well with the last comment of Mr. Acquaye before. So, do you want to comment on that, please? Maybe Thomas first? I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the questions. I already mentioned it. We are in the Pro-Nuclear Like-Minded Group active. We are meeting. There has been a check initiated 2 years ago. Now we will exactly foster the group, then French, and we are really grateful and happy for their leadership and declaration from this Monday is a proof of that. So there is a change, there is an active joint approach. One thing is regional, one thing is say like-minded countries, but not least the important thing is to acknowledge and to support this strategical industrial sector on the EU level as well. It's good. Describe it perfectly. There is the political reasons discrimination between low carbon resources, especially in the just transition fund, recovery resident fund, national recovery plans, etc. If nuclear is excluded, then you have another problem. For a complicated sector, long-term investment, many market failures. For the second step, you have a squeezing out from this theory of sources from this low carbon sector to another one. It's complicated, but once more, there is much happening, and we're grateful for the French French activities which need change and which really help us further, as is mentioned by the French President. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kubaki, want to make a last comment, and I think after it will be over.
Okay. Thank you very much. I was muted, so I can I just share with Mr. Minister information, but a lot of the positive things is recently happened, role of defense recently, you know, and then there is a group of the like-minded countries, Europe, which contacted often now, more often than it was in the past, and then the group is expanding. So let's hopefully, you know, that this like-minded group of countries of the European Union, they will work jointly, as I said in my presentation, to balance and to present, you know, the role of the nuclear power in our energy system mix, you know, indispensable role, important role, you know. So this phase is going on, and we are open. Poland is ready to be part of that movement, and it will be, as I said, you know, that's important also to extend to reach to new countries. And I can say already there are 14 or 15 countries nuclear in the European Union, so we can extend and we have really big impact what is going on in the Commission, in the councils, you know, and then the general, you know, attitude towards the nuclear, hopefully, I think, can change, you know, due to this activity of the countries. And the platform is already emerging, is in, so we have only to invigorate, to make the difference, you know, be more visible in the European arena.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have over. No, we're running out of time, so sorry for the one who had last questions. But no, I think we have reached the conclusion, which I would say cooperation is ongoing, and I believe among like many member states, I think it's a good. It's good news. There are many things that can be done together, and I really welcome this new like-minded group which become more and more active, and this will be very helpful for us in Brussels, and I think also even for the Commission and other institutions to see those this good alignment. And now I would like to hand over the floor back to Claude. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank all my panelists for their very interesting contributions.